Thanks for joining me for video number 3. 1, 2, 3. It's pretty impressive for me. I didn't think I'd make it quite this far. So today I'm really excited. I've been listening to and kind of trying to deconstruct a little bit some concept albums. And my understanding of a concept album is an album that has a theme or a narrative or some type of connection from within each song that makes the album, not only a collection of individual songs, but a piece in its own right, if you will. And so I just thought I'd share some of my favorite concept albums today, and hopefully some of you will have some to put in the comments that I can listen to next. The first one I wanted to talk about was one that I think probably everybody knows really well. That would be Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. This is the remastered 2016 edition, or pressing, and it is pretty easily available still, I think, and they are really good. And not only I think that, but I have heard from lots of people who are experts about Led Zeppelin that these reissues or these remasters from 2016 are really well done, and that the sound quality is really good. And so you can pick them up usually somewhere between 25 and 30 bucks, and they are definitely great to have. But we'll get into this one. I also have a earlier edition, which is very similar. This is a 75 reissue, and you can kind of see the artwork is maintained, in these more recent issues. And I, just think it's really impressive. The cover is like, it almost feels like suede, which is interesting. But, it has the kind of ECG or heartbeat, kind of going through it. And of course that inverted pyramid on the back. It comes with the posters and the stickers. I'm not going to show you the stickers because I've already put them on stuff. But here's one of the posters, which I believe are, were also included in the original artwork. I unfortunately don't have them with my earlier copy. They didn't come with that. I'm sure they're shredded somewhere. And then this other poster of the pyramids here, which is just really iconic and cool. So this particular album, I have always loved it, but didn't realize that there was a concept behind it until I started kind of looking into concept albums as a whole. And so when I read about it, and I don't know if this is all true, you never do really, but is that the concept for the album was that it would be sort of in 2 parts, and like the first part, which would be like Breathe and Time and Money, on the side A, were more about the description of a life that was unfulfilled, and that unfulfillment or in the process of becoming unfulfilled could be led to become insanity. And then the second part, which is the second side of the record, is more about like the experience of that insanity. And it certainly can be kind of reflected in not only the music but the lyrics to some of the songs. Certainly Money is pretty straightforward, and it's really provocative, and the music is pretty suggestive of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it's kind of a straightforward, but certainly like really amazing and fun to listen to, but at the same time quite a significant meaning there. And then of course on the flip side of the record is a lot of talk about being on the dark side of the moon, or meeting on the dark side of the moon, having a stranger in my head, those kinds of things. But what struck me is that there is this sort of theme through it that there will be a collection of us that end up on the dark side of the moon, and we'll be together there, which was just interesting. I don't have any idea what that maybe suggests for the overall theme of the record, but I did think it was, you know, that companionship piece was an interesting thing to have included on the, you know, description of what it would be like to go insane or be driven insane by living a life that's unfulfilling. So, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, you know, definitely essential for any record collector. Well, not any, but most. From there, I'd like to talk about one that is pretty well known, but probably not as well known, certainly, as Pink Floyd. And that is the Mars Volta, Deloused in the Comatorium. This record is unreal, I think. And I was so proud of myself when I was listening to it because there was a song and the bass on it sounded like, I thought it sounded like Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then as I was reading about the album, I realized that on almost every track, Flea is the bassist. And so that made me proud because I could actually pick it out. But this particular album is similar in some ways to the theme of Dark Side of the Moon, although not entirely, certainly. It is a story about a man who, it was based on a short story about a man who goes into a coma after ingesting too much poison and morphine. And I think it's about the experience of being in the coma and in a hospital setting, and the type of manipulation that you could potentially be subjected to if that's the case. I do feel like I have heard that there was a person, a friend of the lead singer, or maybe one of the other band members, or maybe multiple, that had an experience that was similar to this fictional character that in the story, that overdosed on morphine and poison. So I think it was probably a pretty intimate type of experience for the band, but I don't know that for sure. I did read that they recorded the album in this mansion in California somewhere, which is also where the Red Hot Chili Peppers recorded Blood Sugar Sex Magik with Rick Rubin, who also produced this album. And in the video I saw about the Chili Peppers recording, the Chili Peppers themselves argued that mansion was the first place that the Beatles took LSD. Who knows if that's actually true? I don't know if anybody knows except the Beatles themselves, but it's kind of a funny anecdote, I guess. So this album is amazing. It's so complex, you almost have to like work for it a little bit. I do think that most people would tell you that like it, that you should give it a few listens, because I think you almost have to train your ear to appreciate it, because it's certainly not as linear. The hooks are nowhere near as accessible as they are in a lot of other types of music, but it is definitely, you know, really good, very well done. Certainly, you know, it's a great record to listen to all the way through, you know, and lay down and just experience it, or, you know, relax and experience. This is so strange, and I don't know why I'm going to say it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I thought that it might be interesting to, like, play this music loud outside a pool and then, like, go underwater and see what it sounded like. Probably because there's, like, a real aquatic sort of wave element in some of the music, but I don't know. I mean, obviously you can't stay under there very long, but it would just be kind of cool to see what it sounds like. Anyway, it's not super easy to get, although they did reissue singles not that long ago through Cloud Hill, I think is the name of the record company. So you could maybe pick one up. Yeah. And this artwork, again, too, is like really unreal. So, you know, we have the man floating and the tentacles. Here on the back cover is a gentleman who is, you know, broadcasting. He appears to have undergone some experiment. In the background here, which is really interesting, I think, is the potentially clinician who appears to have failed at whatever it is that he was trying to achieve with this particular head. Or he doesn't look very happy about it at any rate. You know, I've created a monster kind of thing, maybe, I don't know. Inside is, you know, again, really amazing. Everything's falling off my lap. There is this little man figure kind of throughout all the artwork who definitely assumes postures that are vulnerable but also exceptionally powerful as well. So, you know, it all adds, I think, pretty significantly to the music, and it's certainly, you know, fun if you like to look at all that stuff and kind of add it, allow it to influence your sort of take on the music. The next album I'd like to talk about that I love too is a little more recent, I think, than those. Is Bon Iver, I think is how you say it. For Emma, Forever Ago, and this was his debut album. Well, Justin Vernon's debut album. Bon Iver as a band, I believe, I'm sure he uses artists over and over, but you know, this was recorded primarily in a cabin in the woods of Wisconsin, and it was just Justin Vernon himself with some setup and some, you know, instruments and his voice. And so it's a really good album though, and he was quoted in the New Yorker in 2015 saying that Emma isn't a person, Emma is a place you get stuck in, Emma is a pain you can't erase. And so, you know, a lot of his lyrics are definitely not linear. There is not really a narrative, you know, a obviously accessible narrative to the songs, or any type of confessional, you know, necessarily. You know, we know that he had gone through a breakup not only with a band, but with a, you know, a lover that he was still recovering from. He was also really sick when he went to go live in this cabin that belonged to his father in Wisconsin. And so he spent 3 months there recording and you know, doing different things, and you know, had to fight off a bear at one point, I guess. It went, you know, I don't know if he had to fight it off, but it ended up in his cabin. So it's definitely a really interesting, you know, piece of music, and you definitely feel that, you know, sort of raw winter landscape in the music, and it's, you know, really definitely, and you know, it's all sung in falsetto, which is, you know, just interesting and unique to him, I think. So if you have not heard this, you should hear it. It's For Emma, Forever Ago by Bon Iver, and yeah, you can stream it anywhere, but I would get it on vinyl if you can. The last one I'm going to talk about today as a concept album, it's not listed anywhere as a concept album when you look at like top concept albums or just Google concept albums. It didn't come up for me, but I do feel like it is a concept album because I think that there's a unifying theme that sort of, you know, combines it all together, and that is Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. So he recorded this. Miles Davis recorded this with a number of other artists. They only had one rehearsal, and then they met, you know, daily for 3 hours and played, and there were no arrangements that he gave anybody. They just really kind of, it was, you know, very much improvisational, and you know, them sort of inspiring each other and kind of responding to one another's sound. So a really clear, you know, call and response kind of theme here in this music. And I feel like the thing that maybe unifies it the most is that it was, obviously it has been edited, but it was an effort to let the listener into the creation of the music as it was occurring, and to really allow the music to just kind of flow directly from the musicians and onto the recording, and with a, directly in real time without, a lot of editing or, kind of bending it or moving it to fit some predetermined kind of structure. There are a lot of things written about this album. It's definitely a pretty big piece of jazz history. It certainly moved jazz in a direction that it had not previously gone, probably influenced a lot of rock and roll that came after it. I would argue that it's quite psychedelic in some parts, even though I don't know that anyone considers it a psych album per se. But it is definitely, obviously there's no lyrics in it, but it is a great album, and certainly very interesting to listen to and very like provocative. So another one to check out if you haven't. That's all I have for concept albums today, but I did want to show an album that I recently came across. There is a little, I don't know how little it was, but a record label called Flying Fish Records in Chicago, back in the 70s. And it lasted into the 90s and then was sold to Rounder Records, I think, and continued to have some labels produced, or some records produced under the label at that point. And I'm going to talk more about the label and the story behind the label in another video. But this album is a live recording of Joel Mavis. I don't know if you can see that. It's called Setting the Woods on Fire, and it is fantastic. I thought it was, I got it because it's bluegrass, and it is bluegrass, but there is blues on here. There's, some funkier elements. There's definitely some that feel more like folksy. And it is so well done. It's really good. And it is on that, Flying Fish label. And it kind of inspired me to check out what else might be on that label. And so I have been lucky enough to come across several albums from the label that are really amazing that I never knew anything about. So I'm going to do, the next little video will probably be about the Flying Fish label and some of the titles that I was able to find, which kind of span genres. There's some gospel, and there's certainly folk and bluegrass, and there's some country, there's some jazz. So it's going to be a good one. And I have just been really surprised and kind of blown away by some of the, lesser known artists that I've been able to listen to from that label. So I will look forward to seeing you next time. Please like and subscribe if you are so inclined. Thanks for joining me. Have a good day.